The world of high-performance sail racing has had its head turned in the direction of multi-hulls in recent years, thanks in no small part to the last 3 editions of the America's Cup. But with that competition now changing course once again, all of a sudden the spotlight is back on monohulls. Sitting at the top of that tree is the 52 Super Series, 5 events featuring some of the fastest racing yachts and most decorated sailors in the world.
This month on Mainsail, we're in Cascais, Portugal for the 3rd round of the series, the Rolex TP52 World Championships. We've come to see just what it takes to win the world's leading monohull yacht racing circuit.
Just a few miles west of Lisbon sits the ancient fishing village of Cascais. For the best part of a century, its yacht club, the Club Naval de Cascais, has played a major role in the development of nautical sports in Portugal, particularly as a venue for national and international sailing events. Offering challenging winds and excellent racing areas on the Atlantic coast, Cascais has been proven over the years to have some of the best conditions for sailboat racing anywhere in the world. And this year, the TP52 World Championships roll into town, featuring some of the best sailors and most impressive yachting hardware on the planet. Although just 9 are competing here in Cascais, 13 boats from 9 countries make up this year's series, with crew members hailing from 20 different nations. Of the 5 regattas, 2 have already taken place in Croatia, and following this month's stop-off in Portugal is on to Spain, where Mallorca and Valencia play host to the final 2 rounds of the competition.
The boats, they've been developed now over 12, 14 years. There's been 100 of them built around the world. They're really fantastic to sail. Everybody who gets on board new just goes, wow, these boats are awesome.
The racing is incredible. I mean, it really is a game of inches out there, and it's so tight the whole way around the racetrack, so you really have to fight for everything out there.
They sail this class because it is the best class in the world at the moment for monohull racing. The level is incredibly high. Yeah, there's just a huge excitement whenever we come to these events.
With one of the most competitive fleets anywhere in our sport, being the team that eventually stands on top of that podium is no easy task. Crew performance, boat design, training, tactics, and a whole host of other factors must all be finely tuned and perfectly balanced in order to snatch victory.
Going nicely here, Dino. Great mode.
On pre-race practice day, I'm on board with a team that knows just what it takes to win this series. American outfit Quantum Racing.
Big height, guys. Nice pressure on Dino. Be careful. Well done.
They're 3-time overall winners and one of the founding members of the 52 Super Series, and currently sit on top of the overall leaderboard.
Good pressure coming.
You can see the boats essentially go absolutely the same speed. It's the tiny differences in execution and boat speed that just give you the edge.
Time's downwind.
But what is it that makes this crew in particular so competitive?
We're always striving for consistency in ourselves. Whether or not we achieve it all the time is a different thing, but whether we're a second ahead or a minute behind, we should race the boat with the same tone and demeanor all the time.
Still got a chance at Phoenix here, Dino.
You know, we spend a lot of time in our rig development. We spend a lot of time in our sail development. This is probably day 25 or 26 in this boat, and so we're still learning the boat and still developing.
Good pop there, Dino.
That's the most exciting part, because we're not going to be as good as we will be at the end of the season, and so it's just always balancing the incremental improvement and making sure you're staying a step ahead of your competition. Incremental improvement doesn't come without planning and purpose, and so all of our days are scripted out before we leave the dock.
We've got a south-southwest gradient breeze blowing in. And along the shore here,
with the human eye only able to pick up so much. In this day and age, the majority of the crew's planning is based on computer analysis.
This is the furthest inboard I've measured for quantum.
A vast range of data points covering speeds, angles, weather and tide conditions, sail shape, rig setups and much more is collected and analysed and used to formulate a specific plan every time they sail, whether it's a practice session or a race. And having been privy to the crew briefing ahead of the first morning of competition, I'm heading out onto the water with the man leading the approach, team coach James Lyne.
Dealing with a team of world-class sailors, it's not like I'm teaching them things, it's more that I'm trying to shorten the learning process. We look at the data, we look at pictures, and we try and make some decisions based on that. For a lot of the other boats, we use photos. We've got a measurement program that we can analyze rig shape and sail shape, because sometimes the eye can lie. Yeah, quantum, this is Chase. Yeah, it looks pretty nice, Terry, for the breeze. Both sails relatively good upper twist. For this team, it's always about moving forwards. Where we are today is not good enough. It's going to be where we've got to be tomorrow to keep winning.
Well, that's it. We can't do any more. Race 1 is about to start. And on board here with James and the team, you can really begin to feel the intensity. A huge amount of preparation and data analysis has gone into setting the boat up as they're going to race. Now, let's see if they've got it right.
Despite getting off to a good start in what skipper Terry Hutchinson described as champagne Cascais conditions, the crew found themselves back in 5th place. We watched on as they battled back, moving steadily up the field to finish 2nd behind reigning world champions Azura. And the coach's relief was plain to see after what had been some testing times on the sidelines.
You can't do anything, you have no control. Can't take the frustration and anger back on shore, so it's got to be got to get it all out here.
The American crew weren't satisfied and stepped it up a notch in the 2nd race of the day, in what were far blustier conditions. And this time, their strategic planning really paid off. A well-deserved first place finish, putting them at the top of the table going into day 2.
Competition is well underway here in Cascais, and conditions have certainly lived up to the reputation. For quantum racing, it has been a stellar day. But as we'll find out in part 2, winning a sailing regatta is about a lot more than data analysis.
This month on Mainsail, we're in Cascais, Portugal, at the Rolex TP52 World Championships, one of the most exciting Grand Prix yacht racing circuits in the world. Conditions on this Atlantic coastline are notorious for high winds and big seas, perfect for the 9 teams competing out here in this high-performance regatta.
The boat the team is racing is the TP52, and it might not look like the high-tech rocket ship we've seen of late at the America's Cup, but don't be mistaken. Under the bonnet, this is a racing thoroughbred.
Now in its 14th iteration, millions of dollars are invested every year to ensure the ongoing evolution of these high-end machines. The industry's top design houses focus on the aerodynamics, structure and shape with one goal, making them faster. The design specifications of these boats must comply with what's known as the box rule, which defines certain key speed-producing dimensions, but leaves enough latitude for designers to express their own ideas. So every boat on the dock is ever so slightly different, and as the current defending champions of this series, the Italian team Azura know only too well, it's the attention to detail that makes the difference between winning and losing.
We talk with the crew and we say how we won the new boat, and they say, for instance, we have here the front pedestal, which is different to most of the boats, that it's facing forward this way. We run it this way, so we have no one facing backwards, and it's easier the communication. And we have the retrieval system here, where if you have the seat out and suddenly the tactician calls for an immediate jab, you can do like this and run inboard. Those are the decisions that are specific to each crew. What works for us may not work for another one.
Out on the race course, those minute adjustments were having the right effect with the Azura crew, successfully manoeuvring themselves into a second-place finish in the third race, pushing Quantum Racing off the top of the table. But in the fourth race, they struggled and finished 7th, slipping down to 2nd in the overall standings. With Quantum Racing back in top spot, it was time to regroup, look at the data and make any last-minute changes ahead of day 3. It's not just the hull and the control systems that are open to individual interpretations. The engines above the deck are also fair game. And once again, it's cutting-edge technology that's leading the study of sail design.
Basically, it emulates a virtual wind tunnel, and it allows us to take into account the forces, the drag, the lift, which sound quite technical words, but basically is what we take into account, I would say that you can see a 5 to 10 millimeter difference in a laugh curve. You see it immediately in the performance. So far, everything has been running on what we call steady state, which is basically flat water. Now we are starting to do dynamic simulations, which basically I would say that last America's Cup was the first step into modeling everything dynamic.
What other world might we have seen that technology applied?
The airplane industry and the car industry. The racing car is closer to us. We have to race next in 1 month. Racing in Monza is not the same as Silverstone, and so it is with the flat water or the water state or the air, particularly, in different venues. So we have to keep adapting to every venue.
It's clear that this fleet of high-tech carbon fibre boats have way more to them than first meets the eye. But this is a game of tiny margins. Despite all the team's individual interpretations, there's very little to choose between them out here in Portugal. Day 3 out on the seas was proof of this, with Quantum Racing extending their overall lead at the halfway mark after a win in the 20 nautical mile coastal race. But they were never far enough ahead of the pack to relax even for a moment. The penultimate day's action saw the Azura crew once again fight back, claiming victory in the first race and keeping the pressure firmly on the championship leaders, trailing them now by just 3 points. And the ding-dong battle for the title continued later in the day with another win for the Americans. Another impressive race win for Terry and the Quantum boys. The Americans topped the leaderboard. In part 3, we'll take a look at how the teams fine-tune their human performance. But before then, here's a quick look at what else has been going on in the world of sailing this month. In Palma Bay, the outcome of the Super Yacht Cup went right down to the wire, but it was the oldest boat in the fleet, J-class yacht Volshida, built in 1933, that took the title. She finished level on points with the Super Ketch Marisha 3, taking the class and overall title on countback. In the UK, Australian Wendy Tuck made history, becoming the first woman skipper to win the Clipper Round the World Yacht Race. Fans lined Liverpool's Albert Dock to see her and her crew of Sanya Serenity Coast arrive home. This unique race sees qualified skippers lead amateur sailors round the 40,000-mile course. And finally, the sailing world is mourning the tragic loss of John Santarelli, who was swept overboard in the early stages of this year's Chicago Yacht Club race to Mackinac in America. The 53-year-old had been a core member of the Amedi racing team. This month on Mainsail, we're in Cascais, Portugal, at the third event of the 52 Super Series, the Rolex TP52 World Championships. Racing has been so close this week, and with just 2 races to go, it's the American team Quantum Racing that topped the leaderboard and have certainly been the form boat in this fleet. But here in this arena, there is no room for complacency. One small error, one poor decision, and it can all slip away. We've seen the precision that goes into designing and developing a TP52 racing yacht, and the data analysis that governs how you set it up. But having a perfectly tuned, cutting-edge boat counts for nothing if the crew don't perform.
A team that doesn't work well together doesn't get the most out of its technology. So you have to have guys that really have the experience and the understanding to use the technology, but then they've got to work together well. I think a lot of it is, personality driven. You've got different boats with different, the team personality is different. And if you don't fit in within that personality, it's probably not the right place for you.
What does it look like on board where, everyone's working on unison?
When you can call a maneuver and you just know exactly what the steps are, everybody's going to get their job done in the timing that's expected, it's incredible. And if somebody gets out of step, the whole thing starts to collapse. So, really, it's a trick to get it all right.
Fine-tuning crew choreography is one thing, but sail racing is a complex sport, requiring constant decision-making about your own strategy and tactics to manage the opposition. Ray Davies is one of the sport of sailing's familiar names. He's been a pivotal part of multiple Volvo Ocean Race campaigns. And fresh from his win in last year's America's Cup with the New Zealand team, this series he joins American outfit Sled as tactician.
So we take everything historical up to the second and then portray what's going to happen next. Risk and reward is a consistent leveler the whole way through all of our sailing, and we really got to check in with that with every decision we make. And it's interesting, like this particular venue, everyone knows you like to get to the right-hand side, and it's risky to get there, but yeah, there's a huge reward if you do get there. If you go conservative, you're out of the race.
When things go wrong, how much of that is your fault?
At the end of the day, as humans sailing these amazing pieces of kit, and human error is pretty common, and we just try to minimise that with clear communication and the team we have on board, we've sailed together a lot over the years, and we've got a huge amount of experience and respect for each other, and I think that's gone a long way for our good year so far.
On the final day of racing, Ray's tactical nous was clearly on show as Sled challenged the leading boat Azura in the early stages of the first race. But their command was short-lived as they watched overall leaders Quantum Racing once again move stealthily up the field from 7th place to 2nd. But today, even they were outsmarted, falling back to finish 5th with their Italian rivals taking the win, reducing the lead to just 3 points and keeping the title battle very much alive. There's now just one race remaining in Cascais, but for many of the crews, this competition is just the start of a long journey towards the 36th America's Cup in 2021. With 4 teams in total now officially taking part, and rumours of more, preparations are already underway, and the 52 Super Series makes the perfect training ground. Few faces are more synonymous with the Cup's recent history than 2-time winning skipper Jimmy Spittle. Having lost the defence last year in Bermuda to Ray and his teammates on Emirates Team New Zealand, he's now back with the team he first joined in 2004, Italians Luna Rossa. Jimmy, what is the motivation for using this series as a training ground for the Cup?
I think it's to see the team operate together, under pressure in a very high-level racing circuit. It is a new group, and the best way to understand the people, relationships, and how you work together is to go racing. One thing that this circuit does provide is a full development cycle on all the sails. So that's something that's good to have the sail design team here and the sailors working together.
You're no stranger to Luna Rossa, back with them. How does that feel? Do you feel like you're back with an old friend?
I really enjoyed my time with the team back in Valencia, and so it kind of felt comfortable going back there. I had a great 10 years with Oracle, Larry and Russell, 10 of the greatest years of my life. But I'm also really excited about the next chapter. I'm not ready to throw the towel in, and I want another shot.
Jimmy's not the only one on a mission to get his hands on the Cup again. For 132 years, the trophy made the New York Yacht Club its home. Countless challengers tried to take it away. All of them failed. Until in 1983, the deadlock was finally broken. The Cup hasn't been back to New York since, but after a 15-year hiatus, the club is rejoining the event and leading the charge, none other than Terry Hutchinson.
Yeah, platoon, quantum.
He is perhaps the busiest man in sailing right now, and if you want to know more about the American team and New York Yacht Club's quest to win the Cup back, then have a look at the sailing pages at CNN. Here in Cascais, though, it has been 4 days of intense racing for Terry and his team, with what proved a fiercely fought battle between them and their Italian rivals, Azzurra. But the Americans proved that currently they're a step ahead in their execution, confidently mastering a challenging breeze in the final race to take a convincing win and secure their 6th world title in the process. 2018 World Champions.
Yeah.
How good does that feel?
That feels pretty darn spectacular. You know, that was a pretty solid day. And then
Being sprayed with champagne by Dean Barker, it doesn't happen every day.
no, it doesn't. He did incredible work this week, you know, and the best thing about it is, you know, as we're building for the future, you know, we have to have mental fortitude when our backs are against the wall.
The goal going ahead is obviously the America's Cup. What kind of confidence does winning an event like this give you going forward?
It gives you confidence in that, you know, you have the right people for the job. You know, I mean, these are pressure situations. We developed a solid game plan for the start of that last race, and he executed it perfectly. So that's exactly what you want. 3 years' time, we're going to need to do that over and over again, and so it's good to do it now.
As the sun sets on the final day of an incredible week of racing out here in Portugal, what have we learned about what it takes to win in this Grand Prix world? Despite all the time and resources invested in the tiniest of fractions, it could still all ultimately come down to the right decision, the perfect execution when it really counts. And that's what makes high-level sport just so compelling.